Well, hello Diecast fans, and welcome back for another fun-filled video here at the Mini Metal Garage. And for this presentation, I thought to myself, you know what? I've done a lot of different diecasts, and I can't believe I haven't done a video on one of the most famous diecast brands out there, Hot Wheels. So I have quite a few Hot Wheels, so I was thinking, okay, how are we going to break them up into different groups and everything? Because, to feature them all in one video would be a bit much. So what I decided I'm going to do is we're going to start off with these. I call these mainstream American classics that we're going to take a look at. And then I'll show you some other Hot Wheels in other videos as well. So Hot Wheels are one of the most popular and beloved diecast brands in America. Established in 1968, and they have sold probably, I don't know, I want to say tens of millions of these cars. Maybe it's even in the billions by now worldwide. And my brother and I can tell you, we collected a lot of Hot Wheels when we were growing up. Hot Wheels and Matchbox were our mainstays. Those kind of off brands I've shown you some of, the Yachtmings, the Tomicas, the Play Arts, all of them. They were kind of secondary interest to us, but we still liked them. But yeah, Hot Wheels and Matchbox were always our go-to diecast cars. And so I thought I would start with this one that's on the turntable. You might recognize this car. This is actually my mascot for my channel. It's in the little picture you see up in the corner when you bring up my channel. And this little 57 Chevy is actually very special to me, and I'll tell you why. Now, one thing I want to disclose to you. You're looking at that, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, are you a lucky guy? You've got an original 1976 Red Lines 57 Chevy. Well, not quite. It's actually a reissue that they came out with in I think it was 98, when they were celebrating their 30th anniversary. What they did was they came out with some commemorative cars that were the top sellers for each of the years. So for 1976, this was the top seller, and they did a reproduction replica for that. And how you can tell it's not an original 1976 Red Line is there's two ways. Number one, this version has a metal chassis. The original one had a plastic chassis. The other thing is there's a little Hot Wheels insignia on the trunk lid. That was not present on the original 1976. When you look at this car from a distance, it does look exactly like an original 1976 Red Lines. And I got a little story to tell you about this particular car. So 1976 was the year my brother was born. And he required a lot of care, as you can probably imagine, as an infant. And me, being the 4-year-old that I was, I guess my father noticed I was feeling a little bit neglected. So he had gone to, I don't remember where he went. I don't know if he went to Kmart or Playtown, which was that was our version of Lionel up in Pennsylvania there. Out in the West, they called it Lionel Play World. I guess back east, it was called Lionel Play Town. But he went to one of those places, and he picked me up the original 1976 Red Lines 57 Chevy from Hot Wheels with the shiny plastic chassis. And I love that little car. I played with that thing so much. By the time I got done with it, the paint was all nicked up, the graphics were gone, and it was just a worn out little heap. But I still had a lot of fun playing with that car, and having this little mint condition replica, even though it's not an original Red Lines, is quite a treat. You should know, I think the original 1976 Red Line one of these goes for like $150 mint in the package. So yeah, that's a special little car to me. Now I'm going to show you another version, and this is a true vintage version. You'll notice it has the shiny plastic chassis. So this is a Hot Ones version with the gold wheels that run a little faster. Very popular to use on many of Hot Wheels raceways. This black version came out in, I think, sometime in the early 80s. I want to say 1981, 1982. Same graphics as the red one. Same color interior with the blue windows that match. Just black paint and with those Hot Ones wheels, which I always thought were kind of cool. Give you a close-up of that. Yeah, so you'll see that the original date says 1976 on the bottom there. But this version came out, like I said, in the early 80s. Very nice. Hot Wheels black paint, I always noticed, seemed to lack gloss, and I don't know why. I've noticed that in a lot of their cars that were black. But that's a pretty nice little version. And I had one of the later versions of this car where the engine is actually sticking through the hood. I didn't really like that version very much. These earlier versions with the clean hood is much better. But this is one of my pop's favorite cars. He really likes these. These things became classics. My gosh, they were just basically still kind of old cars, but they became classics and very collectible. And people were restoring these around the mid 70s. They were very popular. And plus, back then, they were plentiful and cheap. My goodness. All right. Let's take a look at another one. This is another one of those commemorative editions I was telling you about. That's not an original 1978, but it is painted like it. So we got a 57 Thunderbird here. And this is done up exactly like the original 1978 version that they released. There was a later version that came out that was yellow. And then for some reason that I don't understand, I guess it was to save money on tooling or whatnot, but you see how it's got the little porthole window depicted on this? All right, so on later versions of this car, they started filling in the porthole window. And that actually was correct. There were versions of the Thunderbird that didn't have the porthole window. But I remember the original 1978 version, it had a metal chassis. This one's got plastic, you'll notice. But this is one of those commemorative editions. So you notice, see, there's the Hot Wheels insignia. The original one never had that. But I kind of like these commemorative editions because it's a way to get the vintage look and the vintage quality without spending a fortune. And I know my wife appreciates that. But yeah, that's a very nice one. My brother had that car. There was also a yellow version that still had the porthole window on it. And then after that, they started, like I said, they started filling in the porthole, and they made them in Real Riders versions. And there was just a couple, there's just a myriad of versions of these 57 Thunderbirds from Hot Wheels. So that's another one of my personal favorites. All right, let's take a look at something else here. This one is a genuine vintage one. This is not a reissue or a commemorative edition. So this is based on a 1936 Ford. The name of this model is called the Neat Streeter. And this came in several different versions. This metallic purple is one of the later versions. There was also a non-metallic purple, and the original one was painted like a sky blue. And that one could be found in a red line version. You'll notice this one's just a Blackwall version. But the fact it's got the old graphics, the little hood scoop, that was a separate piece. That was very common with the vintage ones. And I'll let you see that graphic on the back a little closer. It says Ford oldie but a goodie. And there you go, Neat Streeter. This came out originally, the original version came out in 1975. My kid brother, that's so funny, I'm calling him that. The guy's 49 years old, works for the county, drives big trucks for a living. Anyways, he had an original Neat Streeter. It wasn't a red line version, it was a Blackwall version that he got sometime in the, I want to say 1978, 1979, somewhere around there. And for some reason, he took to calling it the Ham Hammer instead of the Neat Streeter. I don't know why he called it that. I always found it was humorous. So in my memory bank, when I see this car, I think of my little brother saying the Ham Hammer instead of the Neat Streeter. But I think it's a really neat model. I especially like it in this metallic purple. It's one of my favorites. It's just so cool. And unfortunately, when you see these, I got this one actually not in a blister pack. It was actually loose. Sometimes when you get these cars loose, they're beat up and they're missing this little scoop. This scoop was common to break off if you play with them a little rough. But yeah, that's a nice model. I was happy to get a genuine vintage one. Even though it's not a red line, even though it's not the original sky blue, I just really like that metallic purple. That's a nice one. Let's take a look at another later version of a vintage Hot Wheels. All right, so this truck was called the 56 Hightail Hauler, based on of course, a 1956 Ford pickup, which was very desirable, very collectible for some reason in the 70s. I remember they were fixing up a lot of these. I remember checking out a book from the library that was all about these trucks, 53, 54, 55, 6, and 7. Well, not 7, but the 56s at least. All customized and done up and everything. So you remember the original version was orange with the flame graphics on there. And then they came out with a sky blue version with the same graphics. This is a later one. It's got the metal flake blue, and I always liked this version, and I wanted to have it for the longest time. And I think it really pops with the yellow interior and the yellow motorbikes in the back there. I think that's just really cool. And it's got a nice natural rake to it, the way they set it up, which is really nice. This one always had the chrome plastic chassis. I want to say the original version came out sometime in the late 70s, 78, 79, somewhere around there. But, Hot Wheels did a fine job with these cars, even with the plastic chassis. God, they always look so good. And I love their metal flake paint. They always put the biggest flecks of metal in there so that would really stand out. Because they knew kids would dig that stuff, you know. There you go, 56 Hightail Hauler. All right. Now, let's take a look at this one. This one's kind of special because this is almost like two neat features in one. So this is a 34 Ford 3-window. And this is not the original version. I can't remember what color the original version was. It's escaping my memory. But this is a later version. You'll notice this is a Real Riders version because it's got those little Goodyear tires on it. And it has gray hubs, which was one of the popular ways they would finish those. So in addition to being a Real Riders car, this one is also what's called a High Rakers car. See how you got this little section that's separate, made of plastic? So what you can do is you can pull this down, and it will give your car a nice, really mean rake. And there's 3 positions. That's actually the maximum position. I went ahead and just set it at the maximum so you could see it. It shows up on the camera a lot better. The other 2 settings are so subtle you might not notice it. But yeah, you could set that rake at 3 different settings. And I thought that was one of the neatest things. It was like having your own car with an adjustable suspension. And even though that's a bit comical, to be honest with you, I think the second position is probably the best because it looks a little more realistic, but it still gives it a kind of a nice rake. And, metal flake paint on there. And just a really nice model. This would have been the example of the kind of car that the young guys would have been fixing up in the 50s. They would have been finding these old Fords, kind of barely running and in junky condition and just turning them into hot rods. I think there's a version of this that's black with flames, which is very classic looking. But every time I've ever seen it, it's been very expensive. Okay. That's a nice little model there. Always like that one. Yeah, it says 1979. That's when the original version had come out in the later 70s. Let's take a look at another Real Riders while we're talking about Real Riders. So this is the 1965 Classic Cobra, they call that. And, whenever they did Real Riders, I think the ones with the white hubs were the more scarce ones. So you notice this one's got the white hubs. And this Cobra, I remember this came in a lot of different versions. My goodness, I remember seeing this in a lot of different colors. But this one's my favorite. It's like the dark British racing blue with those classic stripes on there. These would have had anything from a 289 up to a 427, which, I mean, God, these things were a death trap with a 289. Imagine what they were like with a 427. Dear Lord. It's crazy. This is one of the few Hot Wheels that actually has a moving part on it. It's got an opening hood. And you can see it's got the nice little injector stacks in there when it comes around. Little roll bar for the driver. I'll bring it in for a closer detail for you. There you go. Yeah, based upon the style of those valve covers, it's probably more like a 289 or something. You can see it's actually got little seat belts on the seat there. That was a nice little touch, I thought. That's kind of cool. Got the little Goodyear real rubber tires. One thing about the Real Riders, they looked really cool, but they didn't work too well on Hot Wheels raceways. Too much resistance, too much rolling resistance. There we go. All right, now I'm going to show you another commemorative reissue. The 40s Woody Wagon. This one was also in the High Rakers series. Unfortunately, when they did the commemorative reissue, they did not include the High Raker feature, which I thought was kind of a cop-out. It's like, come on, guys, if you're going to replicate the thing, do it all the way, So that was disappointing to get this. But at least it looks the part. It looks good from a distance. It looks just like the original 40s Woody that they released back in, I want to say, later 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. It's got like a combination metal body with the plastic, which is imitation wood there. This came in fresh out of a blister. I was kind of, disappointed to see there's blemishes on the roof, even fresh out of a blister. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, 1979 was the original issue of this one. It's got the little blower sticking through the hood. Yeah, the fat fendered 40. That was quite a classic look. See, another way you can tell it's a commemorative is it's got the Hot Wheels insignia on it. The original versions did not have that. But this is another car that came in a lot of different versions. It came in Real Riders versions with the High Rakers feature. There was a metal flake blue, a non-metallic blue, and several other colors that, gosh, I can't even remember. But, you know, when I'm looking at these, I tend to gravitate towards the more vintage colors because they're the what I remember the best. And for the final one in our show here, we'll look at another 40 Ford. Now, this is called a 40 Ford two-door, not a coupe. The coupe, you remember, had a similar shape like this guy here and this guy here. This one, as you see, it's got that sweet back to it. This is the, I'm trying to remember what version this is. They had a lot of versions of these two. I think the original was the black with the flames. And then they made that version in a Real Riders, and there was two versions. There was the one with the gray hubs and the one with the white hubs. The one with the white hubs being the more rare of the two. I gravitated towards this version because I just really like that beautiful ruby red metal flake paint with those graphics on the side. I thought that was just really sharp. It's just a basic black wall model, but it is still a vintage one. And they just do really nice work with their cars, Hot Wheels. I mean, you just really can't go wrong with them. Yeah, 1982 was the original release. I think this version came out in 83, 84 sometime. This came fresh out of a blister pack too. Very nicely done. I looked at the Real Riders version of this car, and the price tags were making my eyes water. I mean, I just... some of these Real Riders, I can't believe how expensive they are. But yeah, there we have it. I thought it was time to feature some Hot Wheels because they're so famous, and I can't believe I haven't done a video on them yet. So there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed that little presentation, and I want you to stay tuned for the next video because there's plenty more content coming up. So, and be sure to check out future videos that are coming up. And also, I got some interesting things to show you development-wise on the display as well. So I'll show you that in a future video. In the meantime, you guys take care, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.